This figure is showing the large-scale anatomy of the male reproductive tract. And so let's start our discussion at the level of the testes, which is the male gonad. Testes, T-E-S-T-E-S, is plural because the male typically has two testicles. The testes are located within the scrotal sac, and the scrotal sac serves a couple purposes. One is obviously protection. The second is temperature regulation, because the scrotum has muscles in it that can contract or relax to either move the testes closer to the body cavity or allow the testes to drop further away. And temperature regulation is crucially important because if the sperm get too warm, which actually body temperature is too warm, then that will affect the viability of the sperm cells. So the testes leads to a structure called the epididymis. And actually, let me back up one moment. The structure within the testes that actually produces the sperm cells is called the seminiferous tubules. So they're produced within the seminiferous tubules that are packed into the testes. The seminiferous tubules will then lead via a series of ducts to this structure called the epididymis. And the epididymis is where sperm cells are stored and undergo a process of maturation prior to ejaculation. At ejaculation, the sperm will move into the vas deferens, and where most people know this term is from the procedure called a vasectomy. In other words, a vasectomy is where a section of the vas deferens is removed and the ends are ligated, and that's regarded as sterilization for the male. The male will continue to produce sperm cells, will continue to produce testosterone, but the male will not be able to have sperm cells move at ejaculation, move through the vas deferens, so effectively rendering the male sterile. A vas deferens can be reversed in many cases using microsurgery techniques, but it's not a guarantee. So if you elect to have a vasectomy, the hospital will make sure you understand that this is regarded as male sterilization and the success of a reversal is not guaranteed. Okay, the vas deferens then carries the sperm back into the abdominal cavity. You can see the vas deferens then goes adjacent to the bladder, and then we have the vas deferens leading into what's called the ejaculatory duct. And adjacent to the ejaculatory duct, you have what's called the seminal vesicle. The seminal vesicle is the first of three accessory sex glands that are responsible for producing the fluid portion of semen. Semen contains sperm and accessory sex fluids, and those fluids are produced by the seminal vesicles, the prostate gland, and the bulbourethral glands, which are also called Cowper's glands. So seminal vesicles, prostate gland, bulbourethral glands are the accessory glands that produce the fluid portion of semen. So the sperm will move into the ejaculatory duct. The ejaculatory duct will lead into the structure that's the urethra. Here you can see the bulbourethral glands, and during ejaculation the sperm will move through the urethra, which is within the penis, ultimately to the urethral opening and out of the male reproductive tract. Now, another thing to point out to you, the corpus spongiosum and the corpus cavernosum, those are regions of erectile tissue. Humans have erectile tissue to allow the male to achieve erection, and that's done by alterations in blood flow. So some of you have undoubtedly heard of Viagra. Viagra is used for males with erectile dysfunction, which means that the system of achieving erection is not successfully working on its own. And so the Viagra contains chemicals that increase blood flow to this region, allowing the male to achieve the erection. So let's just review one more time the pathway. Sperm are produced in the seminiferous tubules, which are packed within the testes. The sperm then move into the epididymis for storage and maturation. At ejaculation, the sperm will move through the vas deferens back into the abdominal cavity, into the ejaculatory duct. At that point, you'll have the mixing of fluids from the seminal vesicle, as well as the prostate gland, as well as the bulbourethral glands mix with it, and then will move out through the urethra and the urethral opening. A couple other just side notes to mention. The bulbourethral glands actually function prior to ejaculation, because what happens is the bulbourethral glands will release fluids that help cleanse the urethra. Remember, the urethra carries not only semen, but it also carries urine, and urine is going to be toxic to the sperm cells. So just prior to ejaculation, a small amount of fluid will come out of the at the urethral opening, and that fluid is from the bulbourethral glands, which again is cleansing the urethra prior to the sperm moving through. The other thing to mention is the prostate gland. You hear quite a bit of an advertising about prostate health, and one of the problems associated with an enlarged prostate is problems urinating in a consistent stream. And you can see that if the prostate gland enlarges, then you're going to have pressure exerted on the duct leading out of the bladder, which can create the problems of urine flow.